stretch, though.
Okay, we are live.
All right, we are, no, we're doing, we're restarting our morning session with Steve Burns, who has joined us from California, we understand. Hopefully he can finish his testimony. Go ahead.
Yes.
Mr. Burns.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm sorry that this is taking so long. Just to summarize, because I am at the very end, what I've been talking about are fluoropolymers, not fluorochemicals, not PFAS. It is in part of the PFAS family of 14,000 chemicals, but fluoropolymers are very, very different. And I've talked about how they're non-toxic, they're safe, they're not water soluble, they don't bioaccumulate. We have dozens of studies to back this up around the world, refereed scientific journal studies. I talked about the Food and Drug Administration has approved, specifically authorized, that fluoropolymers can be used in coated cookware that prepares food. And then I quoted several European environmental and regulatory agencies that have found the same conclusion. I then told you that the American Cancer Society quotes the FDA authorization on their website. And I think where I left the testimony due to the technical difficulties was telling you that the Environmental Working Group, very respected environmental organization, as you know, writes the following about cookware on their website, and I quote, "Even though it's always been a poster child for PFAS exposure, this cookware is not anticipated to be a major source of exposure." They're talking about nonstick cookware. I focused most of my testimony about the science because I think this is I would like it to be a science-based conversation. And there is, although science should be the leading indicator of what policy decisions you make as a committee, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention economic impacts that essentially would force consumers throughout your state to change their spending habits in the kitchen and beyond. A nonstick cookware is used in almost every home, but it's also used in every restaurant, every fast food burger grill. It coats every wok. It coats every large grill in a local diner or a burrito restaurant. So the economic impacts of sending a policy signal that nonstick cookware is dangerous, and that would drive people, I believe, to switch it out and have to go and purchase entirely new sets of cookware. Can you hear me still?
It was a little loud. I was just trying to get it.
I'm sorry. I will speak a little more softly.
So if you don't have to apologize, this is all our technical problem. We understand that.
I brought it to you, evidently.
listening.
So to summarize, that's the good news. I'm sure everybody agrees. Fluoropolymers are proven to be non-toxic. They simply cannot bind to the human bloodstream. They cannot bind with organic matter. They do not bioaccumulate. They are inert. Yes, are they categorized as a PFAS chemical? They are. We can't deny that. But they're safe, and we'd ask that you consider treating them differently, specifically to cookware, which I represent. But as you heard a couple of days ago, there are other industries that are also using fluorochemicals on a daily basis who have also asked you to look at the science. And as I said earlier, and I'll stop here, we have multiple studies that I'm happy to submit or steer you to. These are not industry-funded studies at all. These are international scientific and university studies from around the world for years and years that have backed up everything that I brought in this testimony. And I thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, and thank you for your patience. We definitely will want you to submit those either links or the studies themselves that we can look at those. Do members have questions? Representative Austin.
I'm just wondering, are you looking at an alternative and for the fluoropolymers?
Fluoropolymers.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if you are,
Mhm.
How far out are you? And the other question is, is there a healthcare delivery of healthcare? Does it impact that as well? Is fluoropolymers in healthcare, whatever, heart heart, I was reading something about heart devices, heart transplants.
Yes. Yes, no, and that's an important point that I mentioned just in passing, really, but it deserves a little more focus. I'll take your second question first. The use of fluoropolymers in the medical device industry, which is a catheter, a stent, or a pacemaker, goes back decades. Because again, the properties of a fluoropolymer, whether it's coating a kitchen pan or protecting a pacemaker inside the human body, are the same. And so my point is that if not just the American medical profession, but the global medical profession has been using fluoropolymers in those three medical implant devices, it would lead me as a novice to conclude that these are safe, that they're not toxic if they're used in that capacity. To your first point, yes, of course, alternatives are being sought, and I haven't spoken directly with the other types of industries. This is a supply chain to my clients that create fluoropolymers, the actual chemical, and then provide it to the manufacturers who put it on the pan. But they're well aware of the conversations underway, and what I have been told is that they have a lot of people looking at alternatives. Not because they don't believe it to be safe, but they do see the regulatory trend line is moving in a certain direction. They do note, and I've heard this, that whatever alternative is discovered and then pushed out into the production line is not going to be as good as the nonstick pan that we all grew up with and that exists today. So they're trying to find something that the consumer won't discard if her or his egg sticks to the pan as opposed to sliding off, which is, frankly, what everybody's looking for. But they're looking for looking for the alternative. I would say, years away, but that's not 10. Maybe it's a couple, 3, because they are seriously looking for the alternative. And so again, I don't speak that from a position of authority, just from conversations that I've had with folks in the industry.
And just want to follow up, just how long would it take industry to recalibrate once an alternative is found? How long for production?
I mean, I don't think it'd be very long, because the production processes of getting a metal pan and then sticking today's nonstick on it won't change. Simply the supply of what that chemical is. So I would imagine it's more about how quickly can the new chemistry be produced and then distributed to these production sites, manufacturing sites.
Thank you.
So I don't think the lag would be on the cookware industry side at all.
Other questions? I guess I have one, which is a little, like you said, it's not a major source, but it's a source, and all the data that we're working on, whether it's in surface water, groundwater, is honestly moving towards zero exposure.
Mhm.
So to say it's not a major source is kind of vague and a little disturbing to me. So can you, and I don't know how, help me with that.
Are you referring, or do you have in mind the end of life, the disposal of the product? Is that, because I think
know
that's,
You said it's not a major source.
yeah, no, I was quoting, I think well, I forget which one the agency said that. The use of PFOA, which we all know is now banned and a dangerous PFAS chemical, has ended, right? And that was in the production cycle for many years. And I think today's fluoropolymers do not have PFOA. Now, I think every I shouldn't say that. Every chemist or toxicologist who has studied this will say, and I think every sector that's probably appeared before your committee, that there can sometimes be, random PFOA or PFOS molecules that find their way in. It might be from the water source, et cetera. So I don't think anybody in our sector would say it can go to zero. But what we do say is that the application technology that's been in place for a dozen years polymerizes, it freezes the fluorochemical onto the pan. And the Germans have done studies, which I will provide you, that apply both, massive amounts of heat as in an incinerator scenario or pressure in a landfill type scenario. And those polymers are inert. If they were crushed or broke or to break off, again, I go back to the central points, which is they do not find their way into the human system. They cannot bind to organic matter. So even intense heat and intense pressure might flake off a fluoropolymer from a pan over decades or years, I don't know. But the essential chemistry of a fluoropolymer remains to be not dangerous. It will sit there forever, and it does not get into the water stream, which, as we all know, is how the firefighting foams or other products that use different types of PFAS, not fluoropolymers, different types. That's how they enter into the human body more than likely, is through the water table and eventually the drinking water.
Any further questions? Representative Bartholomew.
Thank you. Do they not ever break down though? You said they're much longer chains than some of these other compounds. Long chains often over time in the environment will break down to smaller chains that might be active. Do they not ever break down?
And this is, I'm not a toxicologist, but what I have learned is, yes, a longer chain may break or split into smaller chains. But what makes a fluoropolymer different from a PFOA or a PFAS chain, again, I said up to 1,000 times longer, is they lack the alkyls at one end that PFOA and PFAS always have, and that's hydrogen and oxygen. And the chemistry of those two atoms bind onto humans, organic matter or water. And so a fluoropolymer chain, if it breaks, it will never have the alkyls. Think of them as two little atoms on the end that are seeking other organic matter to bind to. And so breaking down, it's the same result. It remains inert, and does not bind to anything that could, again, eventually come into the human body.
And does that include solubility in water?
That is correct.
Yeah.
That is correct. There's a lot of studies about that.
Just another
Again,
question.
all of which I'll forward to you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
A couple of other questions. Do the references you have include abstracts, or do we have to read the papers, or?
No, I will make sure each has an executive summary. They did. You know how the referee science journals are. They write the top part for folks like us, and then 30 pages of text for other people. So yes, they do, sir.
And then also you mentioned you represent several companies, and I guess the number is increasing. Can you identify any of those, or maybe you?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. We're very open. The founding two companies were Meyer Corporation and Group SEB, SEB. Tramontina has joined us, and now we have other support from other companies that are not official members. But a colleague of mine in this effort is submitting testimony from a separate organization, a 100-year-old organization called Cookware and Bakeware Alliance, which has 60 companies, and they are also supportive of us. So that's an association with a much larger trade group. But the three companies that I just mentioned, Meyer, Group SEB, and Tramontina, are the founders of the effort that I'm leading.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience with our technological challenges this morning.
No, you're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Apparently we have one question from Representative Tagliavia.
By your definition and description that the fluoropolymers are non-toxic, and they seem to show the similar properties of the PFOA and PFAS. Are they not possible to be used as a substitute for the PFOA and the PFAS that we are finding that have the alkyls that are toxic?
Oh boy. I'm going to say that I'm not a chemist. I would think if I represented, just as an example, rug manufacturers or outerwear or cosmetics, that I would be looking at that, sir. And to see, if the properties that fluoropolymers bring, knowing that they're non-toxic and everything else that I've said over and over, would they deliver the same thing to the water protection, the fire protection? The reason why people use other PFAS chemicals in a number of products is for that. But as you can tell, I'm kind of floundering here. I don't know. I would think they're looking at it, I guess, is my best answer.
Thank you.
Thank you again for your testimony.
You're very welcome. Thank you for your patience.
Do we have someone lined up for 10:45? Is Anna? Hannah, oh, I see you. There you are.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me last minute. For the record, my name is Anna Suberling, environmental advocate with VPIR. Good to see you all again this morning. I'll be sharing some information sent to me by senior scientist at NRDC, Katie Pelch, who you heard from in the beginning of February earlier on. Recognizing that I'm not a chemist or a scientist, I'd be happy to forward any follow-up questions that you might have or keep you in contact with their scientific team. But since I'm here in the building, I'm happy to pass along the information that they've provided, which if you'd like to follow along, I've submitted a document to the committee's page. You can find that under my name, and I'll just kind of be sharing that with you today. All right. So PFAS polymers pose serious threats to both our health and environment. PFAS are, as you know, toxic chemicals used in thousands of products ranging from cookware to clothing to paint and firefighting foam. Known as forever chemicals because they remain in the environment for such a long time, PFAS have contaminated more than 8,865 sites across all 50 states, DC, and 4 U.S. territories, including drinking water of an estimated 200 million Americans. The threats of these toxic and persistent chemicals is so great that many states and manufacturers have phased out PFAS in many products. Moving on more specifically to polymers, PFAS polymers are a type of plastic used in a vast array of products such as smartwatch wristbands, those nonstick pans you've been hearing about, and waterproof clothing as well. The chemical industry, which previously claimed that most PFAS mostly phased out first generation of PFAS chemicals were totally safe, now claims the same thing about PFAS polymers. But the fact is these compounds have a toxic life cycle that threatens human and environmental health. So there are a couple main points that I'd like to highlight from this sheet here as to why PFAS polymers must be phased out. First, relating to the production. PFAS polymer production and use creates toxic PFAS pollution. PFAS polymers are made using other harmful PFAS chemicals, which are subsequently released into the environment when waste byproducts enters air and waterways. In fact, when scientists studied the fate of a commonly used group of toxic PFAS, they estimated 80% of those chemicals made since the 1950s have been released to the environment from PFAS polymer manufacture and use. Certain PFAS polymers release toxic PFAS chemicals during their use, posing acute and chronic risks to human and ecological health. Workers in plants making or using PFAS polymers are also exposed to serious hazards. Moving on to persistence, PFAS polymers can leave PFAS in our environment forever. Many PFAS polymers are extremely persistent in the environment, which poses unique concerns. Other types of PFAS polymers break down only to form persistent PFAS chemicals. So talking about, that extended life cycle and what these chemicals can turn into. if I may quote, as a recent scientific paper noted, if a chemical is highly persistent, its continuous release will lead to continuously increasing contamination that will take decades, centuries, or even longer to reverse and lead to increasing probabilities of the occurrence of known and unknown effects. With few exceptions, highly persistent organic chemicals should never be used. PFAS polymers can cause illness and injury. Respiratory illnesses associated with normal consumer uses of PFAS polymer containing products such as waterproofing agents and sealants remains an ongoing problem that has occurred for many years in many different countries. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention have reported cases of severe acute respiratory illness linked to the use of a PFAS polymer-based shoe spray, which was later recalled by the manufacturer. The Plastics Industry Association has noted in their own materials that PFAS polymer exposure can cause flu-like conditions known as polymer fume fever. It has also been known for decades that fumes from Teflon pans can kill birds as well. PFAS polymers can also emit the production of PFAS polymers can emit climate superpollutants like HCFC 22 and HFC 23, which contribute to the warming of the atmosphere. Continuing to the disposal of PFAS polymers, and I'll really only focus on the landfill piece. Landfilling of PFAS polymers can lead to contamination of nearby soils and groundwater and can contribute to the releases of microplastics and in some cases other PFAS chemicals as well. So again, continuing to be in the landfill and leaching into the soils. Safer alternatives exist for many PFAS polymers as well. It says here at one point in time, we didn't have to use these chemicals for these products. So to essentially kind of sum up the sheet here, pollution first came to light from DuPont's manufacture of the PFAS polymer Teflon, which led to massive contamination, still causing harm today. Again, that is from the scientist from NRDC, Katie Pelch. A lot of very scientific, very research-based paper here that I'm happy to provide you with her information if you have any follow-up questions.
Thank you for testimony. There's also members, just a long list of references there for your reading pleasure.
Thank you.
Are there any questions?
We were just talking before you testified about fluoro.
Yeah.
Fluoropolymer.
This is what we heard in that testimony does not apply to this testimony. Is that correct? Because I'm getting a little confused with the polymers.
Sure, yeah. From my understanding, this does apply to PFAS polymers it sounds like a broader group, and then fluoropolymers are a subsection of that, to my limited scientific understanding.
What I understood is that the creation of this product uses PFAS.
Yes.
Other questions? Representative Thorne.
Just real quickly, one of the things that you indicated was that, and maybe this will help me avoid reading all the technical papers, but you could just answer the one question, that the fluoropolymers can break down into toxic PFAS.
That is,
But I thought, well, at least with the chemical description we heard in the previous testimony was that fluoropolymers do not have the alkyl on the end. That is what makes the PFAS shorter chain molecules toxic, because it can bind to biologic type molecules. So if it doesn't have the alkyl anywhere in it, how can it break down into something that has the alkyl?
certainly. And I think that's a great question for Katie or Anna, chemist.
Okay.
Yes, sure.
Others, Representative Chapin.
So maybe just to confirm what I'm hearing is that while the nonstick pan itself is not causing as much contamination direct to humans as people maybe once were concerned, that the life cycle of the product from manufacturing to disposal results in immense PFAS contamination of the PFAS things that are not the same as that long polymer involved in the production and then in the breakdown, and much of the contamination is coming from this kind of product
Yes.
in our environment over the last 50 plus years.
Yes, I think that's a fantastic way to characterize this paper here and the research provided.
Olivia.
In your presentation, you said there are safer alternatives that already exist. It seemed that that would be a key point, and there's no safer alternative listed in your presentation.
Sure, yeah. I'm seeing that here as well. I'd be happy to ask for more specifics. In my very top level research, because I was also curious to see that for myself. I've read a little bit about silicone-based alternatives, which I'll need to do some more research, but that is what I found.
Certainly make my decision a whole lot easier.
Richard.
Yeah, so I'm looking at some of the stuff that you submitted, and I'm just trying to figure this out. I mean, one of the things you submitted, I'm looking for the polymer issue, and it's all about mushrooms.
I'm sorry?
It's all about mushrooms.
The citations,
Which one?
They're numbered.
Yeah. You know, that you've used for reference at the bottom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I don't see any mention of anything related to what you spoke about. I'm just trying to figure out.
yeah, if you have a specific.
Team has fluoropolymer in the title. That moonshines with safer alternatives.
Yeah,
That's the mushroom one.
yeah, that's
I went right to 18.
lucky, buy a lottery ticket. So I'm just, that's what I'm trying to figure, you know, as I look through these, I'm just trying to figure out how that relates to.
Yeah, what number are you talking about?
18.
Number
18. And the link takes you to, yeah, again, this is directly from Katie. So I haven't had a chance to look at all of these links, but thank you for raising that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, there's a lot for us to explore here, and we will try to get the scientists from the natural resource conservation. Sorry, I'm getting their acronym wrong, but the scientists tax
council.
defense council. Thank you. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Members, we have Michael O'Grady's going to come in at 11:15. So although we just had a lot of breaks, please come back a little before 11:15 or stay in the room to not miss your flight. We'll